Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar discussion video. This is going to be more of my thoughts on the big massive Avatar announcement from yesterday, that being the announcement of Avatar Studios, a specific studio created solely to make new Avatar content for the future. So they announced this at the Paramount Plus streaming event last night, and they have stated that this studio, which is going to be helmed by Mike and Brian, of course, in sort of chief creative officer roles. They're both like co-chiefs. They're going to be leading this studio, so that's really good to see. They've specified that this studio is going to be making new series, new spin-offs, new short form story content, and theatrical films. The first project that the studio is going to be making is a theatrical film, an animated movie that is going to go into production later this year. The only other details really that have come out are that in their press release they stated that Avatar is going to be one of the franchises that within the first 2 years of the launch of the Paramount Plus streaming platform will be getting new shows, new content, and Avatar was one of them. So that puts us sort of okay, within 2 years we are going to see something Avatar related on Paramount Plus. That's what they're saying right now. Does that mean the movie is coming within 2 years? I guess that sort of has to be what you take from it, unless they very quickly announce other projects that the studio is going to be working on. But yeah, just in general, how can you not be positive about this? After 7 years since Korra ended, an announcement like this, that all of a sudden we're not just getting a third series, but we're getting everything pretty much we've already wanted. And for me personally, I think this announcement is exactly what I would want, because I've always complained about the comics and even the novels right now of just where's the plan? Where's the scheduling? Is there any future planning for the franchise as it is right now, where our focus is on the comics and novels and stuff like that? And the answer's always been no. It seems like they just do it comic by comic. One comic finishes, they announce the next one, and we just go like that. There's no goal in mind for after these 5 books we'll be in this spot and we want to hit these story beats at this point. No, nothing like that. This at least feels like we can actually have some of those plans. We can plan story projects and stuff like that, and we can do sort of stuff Star Wars is doing at the moment with its High Republic novels. We can have sort of media projects like that, where they decide there's going to be a new series. The series is going to be supported by this comic series and these short form webisodes or whatever. They can do that stuff now while still going oh, and we'll make a movie on this side of things, and we'll have a spin-off show over here focus on this. And that's crazy to think of, that people just wanted a third series, but we're getting so much more than that. Now, to immediately, I suppose, bring it down a little bit, let's be real here. I've just gone over basically all of the details about this announcement, and it's cool because the future looks incredibly bright for Avatar. But it is going to be a 1.5 to 2 years before we get to any of this stuff. The question really is, what do we see in the meantime? How up to date do they keep us? How is their communication as a studio going to be about this? When will we see our first proper information about what the movie is going to be about, what your other projects are going to focus on, and do they have a sort of story roadmap in mind where across their first 5-6 projects they want to accomplish this and hit these beats or whatever? That's the sort of stuff that I'm kind of looking for here, because I'm just a little worried that we are going to have all this merchandise coming out, all these action figures and stuff like that, the amount of stuff that's being announced, the amount of companies who are getting the Avatar license for products at this stage this year is crazy. That's going fine. But where's the story content this year? It's very, very light. And so for the next year and a half, what does the fandom look like? Yes, we're anticipating, and we're going to get into like the rumors, the news, and that's going to be very exciting when we start to hear a lot of that stuff. I'm very excited for the news cycle for these new shows to really ramp up, but it's not going to be in the next couple of months, and so there is going to be some kind of I suppose lean months for Avatar, I guess, because does this help to explain why the comics have been the way they've been of late, or not? And I don't really know, because the way the months sort of fall, they made the decision to switch the comics to being one-shots away from like the Promise to Imbalance style books, months before Katara and the Pirate Silver actually came out, because they made that decision in relation to the creation of the trilogy of one-shots that we're getting at the moment. While they were still working on the Netflix show, which gave you the impression that, oh, they're doing this because they're too busy on the Netflix show to do anything. But we don't know if the work to sort of create the deal surrounding Avatar Studios kind of crosses over with them working on Netflix at all. That them leaving that project, yes, of course, creative differences and so on, that's the reason they gave. But maybe they also knew that they were coming off that straight into this even better project where they would have the sort of environment that they did want. And that also plays a role in things. That's where it's hard to tell, because Avatar Studios, there's no mention whatsoever about the comics or novels or anything like that. I don't know if this like changes how the deals are going to work. I'm guessing it doesn't, but Mike and Brian have always been these sort of, story heads basically, and now they're, as I suppose chief creative officers, they are sort of in that position as like overseers of the franchise, which is the position they've been in on the comics. But does that continue? The big thing at this point is like, okay, I think most people accept like Avatar comics, we're not getting anything of note for the next while, though the Suki comic looks good. Korra comics though, what's up with that? Now that we have this announcement, what's happening with Korra comics? Are you going to announce that in the next few weeks or months? Has it been delayed? Has that changed at all? Because Mike is the writer on the first two Korra comics. Is he going to be the writer on this? Timeline-wise, I suppose this could actually still work, in that if they announce it now for like release in September, that means like some of the work on that comic has already been done, especially in the writing department. And by the time it all comes out, like they could really have a lot of it in the bag already with the amount of delays it seems to have had. That's only if Mike is actually doing it. If he's not doing it and there's a new writer, I guess it was just the delays were because of just getting the creative team together. But there's still that sense of, I don't think we're really going to hear much of anything about like news about this for potentially like the next 6 months, unless they have a quick sort of follow-up, here's our own news announcement. I think what they need to do at this point is, for me, is really sort of solidify their sort of like communication. Like Avatar Studios, like, is it literally just a production studio, or is that what you are going to be like calling sort of, like the franchise in a way? Because like, are we still going to be going to like Avatar social media and looking at what the Avatar The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra like individual pages, the official pages, are doing? Or are we going to have like an Avatar Studios page? Because the big thing that I would actually want is them to make an Avatar Studios like website. So we actually have sort of a center point for the fandom where they cover like, here's all the projects that are going to be made, and here's what Avatar Studios like is. And they maybe have what they had previously on like the Nick.com website of like fact files for characters and that sort of thing. You use that as a place where you can put up like shorts or web shorts, little animations, the short form content that they talk about. Because not everything that they make is just simply going up in Paramount Plus. That's what I take from the specific wording that they give on like how a lot of this is actually going to work, is that yes, a new series, if they make it, will go straight on Paramount Plus. A new spin-off series, I guess, will go straight on Paramount Plus. But potentially, I think the way they're talking about it is that like they have like third parties here and there that you might see like them, another streaming platform get this Avatar show like licensed out or whatever. But short form story content might just be a website type thing that they put up on Nick.com, or maybe they have animated shorts on Nickelodeon the channel to keep that going. And I think they specified with movies the way it was going to work. And I don't know if this is every movie, but the ones they talked about during the streaming event were like they'll be in the cinemas for like 30 or 45 days, and then they'll go up on the streaming platform, Paramount Plus. So I'm guessing that will be roughly the situation we have with the Avatar movie when it comes out. So that's good. So like even if you can't get out to the cinema to see it, you'll only be waiting about a month or so to see it. So that's good, and I definitely appreciate that. So yeah, that's a lot of the kind of basics about what's going on with this and like where I stand on it, and that like yeah, the future looks incredibly positive. But we won't see that positivity until more news actually starts to come out. And like I said, I hope they get their sort of communication channels in place and we have more of a sense of like, if like they set up their Avatar studios like Twitter and like Tumblr and stuff like that, and that can be a real source for information. I would love to see kind of like the return of Coronation style thing, that style of information where they really give consistent updates, because if they are going to have multiple projects on the go, potentially covering like large parts of the timeline, I think it would be very useful to have just a very active like social media channel or a website where you maybe have a timeline on your website, just to help really clarify stuff and bring it together. Like my hope would be that they are looking into hiring sort of like continuity sort of like people to make sure everything is in line. And now that they have their own studio for multiple projects, you probably really, really do need that. Like, a Star Wars has specific people who do that and fulfill that role. Because like I said, the media projects and stuff like that, kind of like the High Republic for Star Wars, we could actually see that coming out of them. Like, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see, like, here is this new Avatar series announced, and it's going to link up with the comic series that Dark Horse is doing, and like this novel or two that Abrams Books is doing. And you do it that way. That way you continue everything, but you incorporate it together a lot more. Because that's the thing with, like, say, Dark Horse, is that they have their Avatar stuff, they have their Korra stuff, but now it's just Avatar. It's Avatar Studios making Avatar. Do they have room to now potentially do their own kind of new stories? Because that's kind of what I've been asking for a while from Dark Horse, is like, yeah, give us that sort of third pillar type thing of like a comic, like exclusive story, something completely new that only the comics are telling. Maybe this gives them that chance, or maybe they want most of the ideas to go into their, animation projects. But yeah, the future looks bright. I hope they do get a lot of this stuff sort of set up and going really well. Like I said, Coronation was a great thing in early Korra to get the news out, but then it sort of fell off a little bit during the massive gap between book 1 and 2, and then they weren't really up to much later on. I'm definitely a lot more positive about this than, of course, like the Netflix show. But to anyone, I suppose, maybe like having doubts about that, that like, oh, but they left the Netflix show, what's to say this whole project won't fall apart before we actually see anything come out of it? I think the timing of this, with how sort of quickly after the Netflix show this has been announced, clearly any deal made about surrounding this thing would be with the idea that they want to avoid everything that went wrong with that Netflix show, of basically, we won't have our high-ups, making decisions over your head. We trust you to be the ones guiding this franchise forward, and we'll support you in that. That's why they have their own studio now, with multiple projects, and even if they maybe have as part of the deal had to be like, okay, like you'll get all these projects over the years, but one of them like has to be this thing, I'm sure they'd be relatively okay with that because of how much confidence they put in them. This does seem like a very different situation than the Netflix one, and like I said, there's no way they've just gone into, there's no way a repeat of this is just going to happen, and we'll see they'll leave Avatar Studios because of creative differences. I don't think that's the case. This is really built around them, whereas maybe it came across that way with the Netflix thing, but in reality, it wasn't actually the case. So, I'm not at all worried about that at all. So, any worry about that, I don't really have any of it, of course. And yeah, as far as like, is it potentially too much? Have they gone maybe overboard here with, hashtag content? Right now, no, because one, I would never say that Avatar is a franchise like where we stand right now, where it is overloaded, it has too much content or anything like that. Just because, like, I look at my shelf here next to me, and while it's a lot of books, it's like, okay, most of these are art books. Then we've got 6 main comic series for Avatar. We've got the 2 short story collections, 2 Korra comics, and 2 one-shots, plus 2 novels, and then some scattered other stuff. It's not that much content in the grand scheme of things, especially with the sort of how wide, we kind of go with that stuff. Because, like, pretty much everything is either Avatar or Korra or the 2 Kyoshi novels. There's not a lot else out there to complicate stuff. The Avatar timeline, in terms of what content we have, is very easy to keep track of. And right now, of course, it's just one movie, but there'll obviously be other projects. I think it'll be relatively easy to keep track of this stuff because it's all going to be available on Paramount Plus, so it's all just going to be in the same place with regards to where you watch it. And I'm guessing they will do something to make sure that you know what the timeline of stuff actually is. Watch orders and stuff like that as we get more shows will become pretty easy to keep track of. In that, if this movie does end up potentially being, say, like focusing on Avatar: The Last Airbender and the team when they're older, everyone is very clear about where that is going to be. So that's that. I don't really have any fear that we're going overboard with content, just because I feel Avatar's never been like that. I know there's always going to be some people who are very purist about this, and that for them Avatar is ATLA and that's it. They never got into Korra. Some people are now going to, I suppose, set the line at Avatar and Korra. That's it. But I think there's 100% room for expansion, and we need it, honestly. The amount of space in the timeline, how big this universe is, as basically Mike and Brian said in their statement. They know that, I think they said, the world of Aang has a lot to explore, and that gives me confidence that they will get into that. And, that you can go back all the way to the early Avatars. You can cover stuff in or around the Avatars we already know about, or somewhere right in the middle. They know the success with Kyoshi and how it did things, its atmosphere that it has, and you can do that again with different eras as well. Plus, you also have the benefit of being able to just do, within Avatar or Korra, just the different eras for the characters. Korra when she's a little bit older. The Avatar crew when they're older, of course. Everyone wants to see that. And all of this stuff is just, the speculation that there's going to be. And I suppose I'll end with just a little bit of okay, first thing's going to be the movie. What's it going to be about? I talked last night about how I did think the most likely thing probably is an Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. And the reasoning behind that is, one, it's going to be a movie, a theatrical movie. So I think you kind of eliminate a lot of the slightly more niche topics within the fandom and franchise. I'd be shocked if they went for a Kyoshi movie. I'd be shocked if they went for a comic adaptation, just because I think that would sort of muddy the waters maybe a little bit too much. Whereas like I think they want to do something that's new, but also that people recognize. And for me, what stands out the most would be finally, after all of these years, showing the ATLA characters at basically the same age as most of the audience. And that we've grown up with the show and now the characters have grown up to that level. Everyone has been asking for it for years. That would be such a cool thing to do. And then if you're worried about like fan service and stuff like that, it's not a whole series about it. It's just a movie to sort of launch Avatar Studios, and I think that would just be very cool. This would be the thing to get people's hype and attention, because it's like the first thing that they're going to do is going to be a return to Avatar to show off the characters when they're older. Can you imagine the hype around the news article that like reveals their character designs when they're older? Really, really cool. Every like visual of these characters that we see over the course of that news cycle, if that got announced, would be so hype. And I'm completely all for that, because I think that's what would work the best. And I know people have cited that, oh, but Mike and Brian in the past have said that they're not really interested in doing more kind of like animated content with Aang. But I think a lot of that was said in or around the time of Korra, where they were more defending their decision to make the second show Korra instead of an Avatar sequel. And, you know, the decision to, focus on the new characters and not have it just all be about references to the old characters. And I respect them and what they said at the time about that, because, Korra is an incredible show and it stands out well on its own. It shouldn't be defined by just, what Avatar references does Korra have. But now, we are 7 years post Korra. We are 13 years post Avatar. I think it's about time to finally, show us the characters when they're older. Because like, there's a reason you're doing you did all the comics, like The Promise Up to Imbalance. There's a reason you told them to stop after Imbalance. Why? Other than you want to cover some of that bigger stuff potentially in one of your new series or in your movie. And I think that would be cool, because this would basically be a thing where it would have to cover a few things. Confirm Mei and Zuko as a couple. You could maybe have Azula make an appearance and confirm roughly where we place her. Sokka, what's going on with his life? Anything with Sokka in or around those ages would be just, everyone would be dissecting it and trying to figure out what's going on. Might this be the way to go with revealing who Su Yin's father is? That's always been a mystery. There's stuff you can answer by doing a movie here, and then you avoid a lot of the potential problems of doing a full sequel series of the Avatar crew when they're older by just having it be a movie focused on like one major event. That way it's just your big, boom, here we are, Avatar Studios, we're back. We're doing this Avatar project where the characters are older to show it off to you guys and answer a few questions. We're putting all of our effort into it, high quality animation, all this stuff. That seems like the ideal way to launch it to me. That would get people to buy tickets, to go to the cinema, to purchase the network to watch once it's on the platform. And I think it would have an appeal that perhaps some other ideas wouldn't have. Like, yes, if you just do like the debut of a new Avatar in a movie, that'd be very exciting as well. And a lot of the ideas that people have mentioned of just anything Avatar, people would go and see it. But how many people, how do you maximize that for your first project? And I think because it's the first project, that's perhaps what I do. Now, again, this is going off very little information. They might talk a few weeks down the line about here's their philosophy behind what project they're going to do, and we could read what they say there and be like, oh yeah, okay. The way they're talking there, it makes it seem like they're not going to do that much referential content to Avatar or Korra. Then maybe I change my tone and it's more leaning in the direction of something new. But I don't think we should be dismissing the fact that they'll do an Avatar project just because Mike and Brian said some things in the past. This is a new era for Avatar. This is a very new dynamic that we never thought was possible. Like, a lot of people back in 2014 were saying, Why would Mike O'Brien ever go back to work for Nickelodeon ever again after what happened with Korra and the treatment that it got? But now it seems like they have the full confidence and backing of everyone at Viacom, everyone at Nickelodeon. And like, you know, it was the only franchise to get like its own studio announced during this whole event. Uh, I think Criminal Minds got a few shows announced like in relation to it, but Avatar gets potentially like unlimited shows here in this announcement. You can't underestimate how big that is to see that confidence of them mentioning Avatar as one of their potentially like top 6 franchises that Viacom has, and just going ahead with this studio, the amount of projects they're going to do, that's big, and we'll see how it happens. But I do think a lot of, you know, this is off the table because of this reason. I think everything's back on now because they have enough projects to do everything, that there's not a sense of like this almost desperation of like, if we get one more series it has to be this because we might not ever get a one again, so we can't waste it on this or that. Now there's a sense of like we can be a little bit more relaxed. We can do an adaptation of this if we want to, as covering it through shorts or something like that. We can do a spin-off to cover that, a movie about that, a full series to focus on this new Avatar a few years down the road. All that stuff is suddenly open. That it shouldn't feel that like if we do an Avatar thing as the first movie, that it'll lock every single piece of content into being Avatar. Because if they do that movie in the right way, it'll feel like the perfect middle section of the characters' lives where like, yes, we got an adventure with the crew as adults. It was amazing. It was incredible. The villain was good. The action was great. And there's a sense of like, okay, you can cover more of the Aang and so on in like a spin-off down the road, short story content, the comics, novels and stuff like that. But now that you've sort of launched with a big thing that people recognize, now you can go into more of your new stuff. And I think that's the big thing. It's just that it's not just that we have one thing new, it's that we do have the ability to actually go a little wide with things. Multiple big projects at once, which we never really thought would ever be possible. So that's the main positive that I take away from this, is just that, yeah, we theoretically could have an Avatar project, a Korra project, a project focused on a new Avatar, and like a spin-off or an adaptation style thing, all going on at like roughly the same time. No more 7 years where the best thing that happened was the announcement of 2 novels. No. Once we get through the first year with probably likely very little information, we'll be into announcement. This project is happening, and there'll be so much Avatar stuff that we won't really know what to do with. And that's going to be a very interesting situation to be in. And for me and my channel, things have been slow up until this announcement this year. There hasn't been a lot of majorly exciting things, just a lot of little things. This gives me so much confidence with regards to the channel as well, and just that, like, there's a commitment from the people working on the franchise, and so I feel I can be like, yes, you know, continuing the channel with the heavy focus on Avatar, 100% I can do it, because, you know, if there was a sense that we were maybe going into a few years with like nothing else except, you know, one-shot comics, I probably would have had to expand like some of the other stuff I do on my channel to make it a little bit of a bigger focus. But this keeps things going the way they were, and that's really, really big for me. I'm so excited to get into the news cycle for these new projects, because I'll always remember, you know, being on the site during Korra's announcement, it airing. The book one stuff for Korra is just so, it was such an incredible time to be part of the fandom, and I'm so excited to be part of that again when we start to actually get the details for this new Avatar project. It was fun last night with this announcement that no one expected, and everyone being like blown away that it was like people went in expecting like 10%. We got like 200%. And it blew everyone away, and it was just such a surprise announcement that I think people are still recovering. Like, just the fact that, oh, like in a few years, we are going to have multiple Avatar big media projects. That's insane. Who would have thought that the last few years? And I think there's only really been major positivity since, basically Avatar came back to Netflix last year. And we've seen everyone acknowledge just how popular Avatar is. And now we're seeing the results of that, and hopefully they get it right. Hopefully they make the right choices with what they're doing these projects about. And I think probably the communication thing is also very important. I do hope they communicate well with the fan base. Like, it's one thing to say that they love the dedicated, growing fan base that they have. Communicate with us about it. Keep us informed about what you are doing. So I hope they have like a coronation style thing to do that, and it's not as sort of scattered as things were, especially towards the end of Korra. But this seems very different. And just one final point is just that it's crazy to think that like back in 2013-14, the fandom was just discussing, like, what are Nick doing? Like, why are they taking the show off the air to put it on digital only? And now, all these years later, we're talking about, yes, like, they're doing all this digital only content. And, there's going to be a movie that's exclusive for just like a month or two, and then it'll go up on a streaming platform. That we are happy and ecstatic that most of this content is going to be just on a streaming platform, which is basically the way Nickelodeon ended up kind of doing the end of Korra, is acknowledging very online fan base, right at the verge of everything becoming very focused on the streaming. And I've always noted that about Korra, is that in reflection, it felt like, okay, it was bad that they did that right in the middle of a season, but it was actually probably a decent move for the type of show that Korra was, compared to Nickelodeon as a channel. It fit better online, and it did great numbers online when they switched it there. It was obviously at that weird transition point where, watching shows on TV at the time that they're scheduled to be on was still kind of a thing, but not really that important. Now, who watches TV show at a specific set time that's not sports, live sports? No one really. So that's so interesting here, is that that's what this whole streaming event kind of was. It was like reality TV, sports, and content. And, Korra kind of ended up doing that already, like right at its end. And it's just interesting to see just the evolution of that. Of like, Avatar was appointment television, you had to watch it. Korra, this weird sort of transition, as like it was still digital for a lot of people, but people still watched it on TV. Me, as being a non-American, being from Ireland, I didn't get the TV watching experience for Korra. I had to watch the shows in line with Americans. I had to watch live streams of it to get that sort of live effect. Now it's going to be interesting, because like we're actually going to have a cinema experience for Avatar. It's going to be really interesting. But we're also then going to get, digital show launches, which is going to be really cool as well. I wonder how they'll do the releases of those, in terms of like, will they do it one a week, or will they just drop the whole season at once? For the sake of the fandom, I actually would definitely lean towards doing it one episode at a time. Especially for like the main series that are going to be your sort of ATLA Korra equivalents. Maybe for the spin-off shows where there's only a few episodes, maybe drop them all at once. But make the right choices there, depending on the fandom, of course. So yeah, they're my thoughts here in this secondary video. It's still very difficult to wrap my head around just everything I want to say about this, because it is honestly everything I've wanted for Avatar for the last few years. And it's so interesting to see that it does hit most of the beats that I want. Multiple avenues to tell the story. They're making it clear that they want to tell it down different avenues of the franchise with regards to like the timeline and eras and so on. It seems like there's a sense of like they're planning things out in advance because they do have multiple projects and they have an overall studio just for Avatar. It's just about getting the organization right, hiring in the right people, choosing the right animation studios, and I suppose most importantly, choosing the right stories. So they're my thoughts, further thoughts on the Avatar Studios announcement in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Also, podcast will likely be at the weekend where myself and Greg will talk about this some more as well. So there'll be more discussion about this coming in the next few days as well. So look forward to that. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching and bye.